Quran study with Dr. Yamina. We will continue to journey in Surah 18, Al-Kahf, the cave. And this will be our third session with a new story within the Surah. And inshallah, it will be an insightful lesson for all of us. As usual, you're welcome to join in. You're actually encouraged to join in with your comments and questions during the discourse. You can also ask your questions and share your comments at the very end. So without further delay, I turn to Dr. Yamina to lead us tonight. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you, Isra. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So if you remember, the first week we went through the general theme of the surah, and then last week we went through the first story, which was the story of the youth of the caves, the companions of the cave. And the second story is that of two neighbors, two men and their gardens. And it's from ayah 32 to 44. And this story can be read as a triad of wealth, but we'll inshallah also look at it within the general theme, because it's there anyways. It's not like we're making it up. We'll see that it is again closely related to the reality of impermanence. When people are oblivious to impermanence and live as though life is permanent, they start perceiving things as though they were permanent, and therefore as relative sources to some benefits, as if the benefits we're getting through things are actually proceeding from things themselves. That's how it seems when we forget that they are not permanent. And this leads people to seek to possess those things because they seem to fulfill their needs. And as a consequence, people make those things into what I'll call idols, because that's what they are called in the Quran. And what does it mean to make something into idol? It means we're seeking benefits from those things. So those things become like mini gods that can provide some kind of benefit. And some go as far as committing all kind of injustices and aggressions in order to guarantee the possession of those things, to get the monopoly over something like wealth, for instance, and power, because they see it as a source of something they want to control. And this is the reality of shirk. We've also seen again and again how when we live with the mindfulness, with the presence that everything is impermanent and transient, including ourselves, then we are, inshallah, we're more likely to seek what the flow of things indicates. It's like we are made, the flow of things, the impermanence itself, the flow of impermanence, of change and transformation, starts in us, makes us ask a question and wonder where this flow is coming and where is it going and what does it mean, what is it indicating. And so it leads us to the confirmation of the Quranic teachings that everything is an ayah, because in their transience, things are signs, they are ayat, they're pointers indicating the realm of the unseen, alam al-ghayb. And that's very important. It's one of the first qualities or characteristics of al-muttaqin, people who are God conscious. And so what does it mean that things are signs and ayat indicating the realm of the unseen? They indicate the true and permanent source of all what we seek. And this realization transforms our relationship with the world and our relationship with the things themselves, the things that we value at least. We start seeing them for what they are. We start perceiving them as signs and not as sources, not as idols, not as small deities and gods. We start perceiving them as gifts and blessings from our Rabb, our sustainer, and therefore as reminders of his generosity, of his rububiyyah, his sustainership. We start seeing them as ayat indicating his beautiful names, al-asma al-husna, and making our Rabb known to us with his beautiful names, as we are taught in the Quran. We start perceiving them as messengers, glorifying their maker, glorifying their Rabb, and making tasbih, yusabbihuna bihamdih, and praising him and inviting us to join in their tasbihat, in their glorification, and remembering God as we interact with the world, with things, so that our interaction with things becomes ibadah, becomes a means of worshiping God, of knowing God, worshiping him, being grateful to him, getting to know him, getting closer to him. We start seeing everything as mirrors to wajh Allah, to God's countenance, which makes it possible for us to see his face, his countenance, wherever we turn, as we are told in the Quran. Wherever you turn, there is God's countenance. Thamma wajh Allah. And seeing them as ayat makes it also possible for us to live, when we see them as ayat, which means all these things, it becomes possible for us to live with ihsan, meaning in the presence of our Rabb. So the world is not an obstacle, is not a barrier, is not something that makes us forget who we are and who our Rabb is, but just the opposite. The world becomes the means of remembering God. Our interaction with the world, our breathing, our going around, our eating and drinking and everything, all our activities become the means to know God, and therefore all kinds of activities transform into ibadah, into worship, bi'idhnillah. We're told in Surah Al-Kahf, in this surah, in ayah 28, remember we stopped at 26, we're starting, inshallah, the story at 32. In between is 28, since we're not going ayah by ayah, since we don't have that time. It's a very long surah. In ayah 28 of Surah Al-Kahf, Surah 18, we're told, and patiently stay with those who call on their Rabb, on their sustainer, morning and evening, seeking his countenance, yuriduna wajhah. And let not your eyes turn away from them, from those who seek God's countenance, desiring the adornment of the life of this world. It means when we desire the adornment of the world for the world, and then we are turning away. And the alternative is to seek his countenance. I'll carry on. And let not your eyes turn away from them, desiring the adornment of the life of this world, and pay no heed to anyone whose heart we have made heedless of our remembrance, who follow their own whims and desires, and who transgress all bounds of what is good and true. And you see, it means those who call onto their sustainer, the Rabb. It's important. Morning and evening, constantly. That's what it means. Seeking his countenance, they are always in a state of remembrance. And those who don't, then they are in ghafla an dhikrillah. They are heedless of the remembrance of their Rabb. So the heedless remains unaware of God's countenance and therefore fails to remember him. The only way we can remember God all the time is to see his countenance in everything, to witness his countenance in everything. And his countenance, as I say it again and again, and I learned this from Imam Badi'u Zaman Sa'id Nursi rahimahullah. May Allah bless him and reward him for his teachings. He tells us that God's countenance is the face of everything that looks to the divine names, that aspect of things that mirrors or reflects the beautiful names of God. So things perishes, they go, and they are transient and impermanent. But once we witness the beautiful names of God there, their meaning remain with us, and that's God's countenance. But the heedless, because they remain unaware of God's countenance, because they do not see the beautiful names of God in his creation, in the world, they fail to remember him, meaning they forget about him. And they are heedless of their own limitedness as well, because as we remember our Rabb, we remember him also in the mirror of our own limitedness, of our own ubudiyah. They are heedless of both sides. And because they are heedless of their own limitedness, instead of seeking guidance from God and following it, they follow their own whims. They have whatever they call them. They may call them plans or whatever. If it is not divine guidance, if it is not taking us to permanence, if it is not connecting us to our Rabb, to the unseen, to eternity, to the eternal hereafter, then it is not guidance, and it is everyone is following their own whims. And in doing so, they transgress. In many ways, in many levels, at many levels. Because they imagine that they can fulfill their own happiness, and so they pursue the means of fulfilling their own happiness or their own whatever fulfillment they are seeking. And sometimes they pursue it at all costs. And sometimes the cost is not only something that harms the person, but the people around them. And sometimes the scale can vary. And this way, they make the means into idols and open the way to shirk. Shirk is associating other things with God. It means attributing, ascribing powers or benefits to things apart from God. And since they remain unaware that the source, the sole source, and the keys, I'm using the word keys because it's the word used in the Quran, maqalidu kulli shay, the keys of everything, of all what they seek is with their Rabb, with their maker. And that source is infinite. but they remain unaware of it, of this reality. So they end up living in a world of scarcity. Everything is limited. We are told resources are limited. It seems resources seem limited in that worldview, in that perception. And life feels like a struggle. You have to struggle to win. The strongest wins. Might is right. So you have to be mightier, and it becomes a struggle of wills, and whoever is more powerful. Not whoever, it's not about who is right, but it's about who is more powerful. And you can imagine the consequence of such an attitude, such a distorted worldview. It leads to transgression, to all kinds of aggressions, to injustices, to the injustices of social classes, of wars, of from very subtle things to really from subtle social individual small things to injustices at the social level or even at the global levels, like wars, for instance. Then these people, why? Because people feel the need to compete for power and wealth, and they see that as limited. So it has to be in one person's or in a group, few people's hands under their control. And part of it is that they attribute value and status to, for instance, power and wealth. I'm sticking to wealth because in this story, the topic is wealth. For the muhsin, the God conscious, the muhsin who lives in the presence of his Rabb, who seeks God's countenance and witnesses God's countenance everywhere, who is therefore aware that all power, all wealth, all goodness, everything that we need belong to God and to God alone. And they proceed only from Him. He alone can give it to us. Even when we are working for something, it is a gift unto us, because some people may be working more and they may not get it. So it's a delusion to imagine that I'm working hard, that's why it's given to me. In the perception, in the worldview of the muhsin, there is no scarcity, but abundance. The source of everything is with God, the unseen. It's not here. So even if I have only one thing in my hand, I still believe is that, because if I have it in my hand, if the abundance is with me now, it's not belief. Belief is based on something I'm not seeing, but I'm sure about it. Because the source is not in the world. Things are coming from somewhere else, flowing into this world, leaving, and others are coming. It's a constant flow. So in this perception, there is no scarcity, but abundance. And the goal of life is not to amass wealth or anything else, as a matter of fact, because wealth itself is not the source of anything. If it is given, alhamdulillah. It is not given, alhamdulillah. Whoever is giving or not giving knows why he's giving it or not. If I feel the need for it, I ask for it. If it is given, it means, okay, my wish and God's will aligned, and the prayer is accepted. If it is not given, it means my prayer is accepted in other ways. Maybe what I need, I think I need the wealth. Maybe I need something else. How would I know? In this perception, the muhsin is aware of his limitedness and is humble and accepts the fact that I don't know and I don't know what's the best for me. That's why we seek guidance. That's why we seek help constantly. So with this mindset, it becomes easier, for instance, to share in times of ease and plenty, and to be patient in times of hardship. And in any case, whatever is going on, to be grateful, because we trust. We trust that God has the best. Whatever is happening meaningfully. Whatever God wills is meaningful. It serves myriad, not only one purpose, but myriads of beautiful purposes, even if I'm not aware of them, because I witness 1, 2, 3, and then I realize that I cannot know everything, and therefore I surrender. I submit to the fact that I am not the, how do you say that? Just because I don't understand something, it doesn't mean that it's not there. I cannot be the criteria, especially because I am so limited. I only know as much as I am made to know. And so there is trust and surrender. And as we told in Surah Al-Ra'd, Surah 13, in Ayah 22, we're told, and those who are patient in adversity out of a longing for their Rabb's countenance. وَالَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا ابْتِغَاءَ وَجْهِ رَبِّهِمْ. So those who are patient out of a longing for their sustainer''s countenance and are constant in prayer and spend on others secretly and openly out of what we provide for them as sustenance, and who repel evil with good. It is these ulaika, it is those that shall find their fulfillment in the hereafter. So you see, it's the opposite here. With this mindset, people are patient in hardship. They long for their sustainers' countenance. They are constantly praying. They spend on others. They share with others. They are aware that from what we provided for them as sustenance, what God has provided for them, so they know that they are only a channel through which God's sustaining and providence and providing is being manifested into the world. And they repel evil with good. It becomes easier to repel evil with good in this mindset. And as a result, the muhsin does not perceive the wealthy as superior to the poor, or vice versa. The poor is, some people may think that the poor is, how do you say, more, not righteous, but, the world, sorry, the word is on the tip of my tongue, but how do you say when the wealthy is, the poor is more not righteous? Anyway, you can guess. Subhanallah.
Dignified?
Not dignified, no.
Or maybe deserving, more deserving.
No. The poor is not, I'm not talking about wealth. I'm talking about, because someone is poor, he has better morals. He's more morally, how do you say?
So righteous, yeah, more righteous. Or
there is another word, anyway. But you get the idea, but not deserving of something. No.
Piety? Piety?
Maybe I was not talking about piety, but more about like moral, like as if the wealthy is seen more as a sinner and the other one more as a moral person, let's say.
Upright?
Maybe. Thank you all.
They're less arrogant for sure.
Not necessarily. That's what I want to emphasize. Like, the muhsin does not perceive the wealthy as superior to the poor, or the poor as morally, let's say, superior to the wealthy, because the muhsin is aware that wealth is not a source of power or status or anything in itself. Wealth or any possessions does not define who we are as human beings, as souls. Wealth is not necessarily an indication of greed and transgressions. It may not be. It depends on people, on their attitudes, on how they are using their money, how they are making their money. It depends on the person. Wealth is not necessarily an idol, and therefore it is not necessarily an obstacle to faith. It is not necessarily wealth equals idol equals shirk. That's not true. That depends on the person. It is people who make things into idols. It is people who make wealth and anything else. It could be family name, anything, into an idol. So it is our perception of wealth and the resulting relationship to it that makes the difference. The muhsin is aware of this because the muhsin is conscious. The ghafil, the heedless, is not aware because the ghafla is a lack of mindfulness, is a lack of consciousness. So there is the ghafil, the heedless, conflates his perception, his misperception, his deluded perception of the world, of wealth, of himself, with the reality. He takes it for granted that his perception equals reality. He never even asks if there is a difference. The muhsin is the one who is always asking, always like, is it true? Is it true? Is this what's going on? Or is it my own misperception? So there is always asking and asking for help, seeking guidance, making istighfar. So with this attitude, it becomes clear that it is our perception of wealth and, the resulting relationship to wealth or to anything that makes the difference, that makes wealth either into an idol, or wealth can be a blessing, depending on how we perceive it and use it. It is a gift, whether we work for it or not. It is a gift. It is a gift in the sense that it is given to us. Just because it is to some people it is given, and instead of becoming a blessing, it becomes an idol, a means of shirk, something that takes them away from goodness, from justice, from but this can happen at various levels. Usually people may reason that they earned their money. From one perspective, it's true. You didn't find it in the street. You earned it. You worked for it. However, it does not mean that it's now theirs to do whatever they want with it. That's not true, because even as we work for it and we earn it, that earning is also the will of God, and it is our allotment, what He allots us, and it is our rizq, our sustenance. It is a gift from Him. Because lots of people may be working harder, but not all of them are as wealthy. Some of them may be working harder and poorer. So it's not, I worked hard, therefore it's mine. Some are tested with wealth and some with other situations, with poverty or less wealth or whatever. In itself, wealth is neither a curse nor an indication of divine approval. Like, you got more wealth, therefore God loves you more. There is no such a thing. It is an ayah. We are told in the Quran that, like everything else, it is an ayah. So in Surah Al-Rum, Surah 30, Ayah 37 and 38, we are told, are they not, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا, do they not see that it is God who grants abundant sustenance or gives it in scant measure unto whomever he wills? In this, behold, there are signs, ayat indeed, for people who believe. Hence, give his due to the near of kin, as well as to the needy and the wayfarer. This is best for all who seek God's countenance, for it is they who are successful or prosperous. أولئك هم المفلحون. So you see, it is saying, don't you see that it is God who gives you a lot or little? And it doesn't say if he gives you a lot, give. Whatever he gives you, you give from it. He gives you a lot, you give a lot. He gives you a little, you give a little. And this is best for all those who seek God's countenance. And who knows, who is aware that this is a sign from God, an ayah? Those who believe. لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. And those who will take it and use it in the way God's want it, not in the way I want it. That's why Israf is not only about spending a lot. No, I mean, mostly people are not going to buy things and then throw them. But we can be either buying more than we need, or buying without, even if I am buying only what I need, but I am not aware that it is given to me as a gift. I spend it thinking, imagining that I earned it, it's my money, I am doing whatever I want with it. Astaghfirullah. And then it doesn't become yuriduna wajh Allah, those who seek God's countenance. So those who seek God's countenance are aware that wealth, like everything else, by the way, like life itself, are gifts from God. And all these gifts, everything is transient. It is impermanent, except wajhullah. Only wajhullah, only God's countenance is lasting. Everything else perishes, as we are told in Surah Al-Rahman, Surah 55, Ayah 26-27. كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. All that is on earth or in the heavens is bound to pass away, to perish, but forever, except your sustainer''s countenance, full of majesty and glory. So seeking our sustainer''s countenance, our Rabb's countenance, is the path away from shirk. When we are not seeking God's countenance, we are it's very likely to fall into shirk without even realizing, fall into associating partners to God, into making things into mini idols, meaning attributing powers and benefit to them apart from God. In Surah Al-Qasas, Surah 28, Ayah 87 and 88, meaning the two last ayat of this surah. Usually the last ayat are very important because they are summarizing the message. So we are told, and never let them turn away from God's signs after they have been sent to you. Instead, call unto your Rabb, your sustainer, and do not be of those who associate partners with him. وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. And never be sure you are not one. Never be one of those who are mushrik, who associate partners with God, who make things into idols. Next verses, and never call on any God, anything with God, for there is no God except him. Everything is bound to perish except his countenance. With him rests all judgment, and unto him you shall be brought back. وَلَا تَدْعُ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَهُ. How do we know that there is no God except him? It's because, except his countenance, because everything perishes except his countenance. They can't be gods, they can't be the source of anything if they are perishing and impermanent. So in this story, we have two people. One is arrogant, the other is humble. This is very important. It reminds me of the stories and parables in Imam Badiu'z-Zaman Said Nursi's, whenever he's explaining some verses from the Quran, he uses sometimes examples, parables, and usually it's one is arrogant and the other is humble. And as he says, he took it from the Quran. But it's important that he doesn't start with one is a believer, one is a disbeliever. Because before, how about someone who never heard about the Quran, about the message, about haqq, about the truth, about guidance? How come someone comes to the path and someone doesn't? That's what matters. Before we become believer or we remain disbeliever, the difference is in arrogance or humility. So one here is arrogant and the other is humble. And the arrogant one has been given so much wealth and the humble not so much. So now I'll go through Ayah 32, 33, 34, and you will understand what's going on between them. And set forth to them the parable of two men, upon one of whom we have bestowed 2 gardens of grapevines and surrounded them with date palms and placed a field of grain in between. Both of these gardens yielded its produce and never failed therein in any way, for we had caused a stream, a river, to gush forth in their midst. And he, meaning the man, had fruits in abundance. So he said to his companion, while he disputed with him, I have greater wealth than you, and I am mightier in followers. So this is the arrogant, wealthy one speaking to the other, to his neighbor. So the arrogant one is boasting, I have greater wealth and I am mightier in followers. Meaning that when because, let's say, he has abundance in wealth and people, he is imagining himself to be greater than his poorer neighbor. And I'm sure we're all familiar with this kind of reasoning, not necessarily with wealth, but even with wealth. But it could be with other things. You may think of other situations apart from wealth. Wealth, followers, people. This is about power and status. This is how the people start differentiating between different so-called social classes. There comes also education and knowledge, and maybe as well. And sometimes even very superficial things also can be taken into consideration. But we are all familiar with this reasoning. And it's not only the wealthy that buy into it, but also often the poor buys into this reasoning. And that's why, because everyone accepts it, including the poor, it empowers. The poor are also contributing to empowering the wealthy over themselves and opening the door to potential injustice, corruption, looking down onto some people like this person is doing, as if it's not about who we are, but about what we have, subhanallah. So according to this faulty reasoning, to this deluded reasoning, wealth is somehow the standard of greatness or superiority or whatever you call it. But how can something that perishes, something that is impermanent, constitute a standard for anything that is lasting. Greatness, superiority, perfection, beauty, goodness, these are qualities that are lasting. How can something that doesn't last be the standard for something lasting? Wealth or anything else, actually, any other, especially material things, they cannot create anything. Wealth can't give life, for instance. How can it make someone superior? How? It's something out there, your wealth.
But Yamina, how about somebody can say health? I'm healthy.
Sorry?
Like, instead of wealth, let's say health. And I'm healthy and I'm proud of my health. And it's not outside of me, it's in me, and it does mean a better life in some way.
Yeah, so what is the...
So how do we question, because the way we are questioning wealth, we're saying it can't give you life, it's outside of you. Or what if the person is...
But usually, do people say I'm healthier than you, therefore I am superior? If they do, then we can discuss it. But I mean, health is a gift. If I think it is my health, then I am deluded, because health comes and goes like everything else. Tomorrow, the one who is sick could be healthier than me. I could be sicker than someone else. But the impermanence is always there.
Yeah, you think that I have something in me, like essential to me.
No, even my youth. People may think, oh, it's my youth. It doesn't go like health. But after 10 years, 20 years, and then you start realizing it's going. It's not here anymore. The impermanence here is what is... but I want to also open the question to other, because in the Quran, it does not... The main thing is impermanence, but the fact that it is impermanent, how do we understand it? For instance, it doesn't give life. It doesn't create anything. It does not in itself. It does not mean, and it's... I gave many times the example of water. You say, but I can't live without water. No, we need water, but this does not mean that water is the source of life, because water itself doesn't have life. So someone else is giving us life through water, or is giving life to everything through water. In Surah Al-Furqan, Surah 25, Ayah 3, we're told, and yet some choose to worship instead of God, gods that cannot create anything, but are themselves created. And they have it not within the power to avert harm from or bring benefit to themselves. And they have no power over death, nor over life, nor over resurrection. And add to this, of course, all this means that wealth is impermanent. It comes, it goes. So how can it determine the value of people? And that's exactly where the problem lies with this arrogant neighbor, because the arrogant, the conceited guy is deluded, and he says in the next ayah 35, and he entered his garden, having thus wronged himself. He said, I do not think that this will ever perish. ما أظن أن تبيد هذه أبدا. Can you imagine how deluded this guy is? I mean, how could he possibly make this claim in the face of the reality of impermanence? His heart is blinded by his desires and whims, and his ghafla, his heedlessness, is blinding his eyes, his heart, his insight. I mean, like everyone, he knows that everything, his gardens, his wealth, everything, he himself is impermanent. However, his wish is that it is lasting, and that's what it means to be deluded, to hold on to a belief even though it goes against the reality of what we observe, of what we witness. That's exactly what delusion is. It is defined as a belief or an impression that is maintained firmly despite being contradicted but by what the reality is.
Dr. Yamina, you start tonight's session by talking about living life as if we are not transient. And so the story is externalizing what we have oftentimes, that, you know, there is something in us that pretends as if it's never going to pass, and I don't think it's going to ever end. It's all mine. And
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that there is something in us, like it's like a different section, a different bubble, let's say, a bubble of delusion, and we hang on into it. It doesn't mean that this guy, or when we do it ourselves, he doesn't know that everything is impermanent. It doesn't mean that he denies it. It means that he lives as though his wealth were permanent. It's a situation we can relate to, as Isra is saying, since we often find ourselves in that situation. He lives, the only way I can imagine it is like in a bubble of delusion, a bubble of ghafla, of heedlessness, and it requires intention to live intentionally, to choose to remain conscious of impermanence and to maintain that consciousness in order to go out of that bubble, or to, like, the intention to remain conscious to impermanence is like picking the balloon with a needle. And so this deluded person is a ghafil, he's heedless. And the heedless are described in the Quran. For instance, in many, they are described again and again because it's an illness of ours. But in Surah Al-A'raf, in Surah 7, Ayah 179, we're told they have hearts with which they fail to understand, and they have eyes with which they fail to see, and they have ears with which they fail to hear. They are as cattle, nay, they are farther astray. It is those who are the heedless. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. That's what heedless means. And of course, with this attitude, this conceited person can't possibly believe in akhirah, although again, be careful, he does not mean that he denies it, but not denying something is not the same as believing in it and confirming it with evidence. When we confirm something with evidence, we are sure, and therefore we don't live as though it's not true. We don't live as though there is no akhirah, or as though life is permanent. When we have, the more convinced we are of akhirah, the more it means we are seeing, witnessing God's countenance, God's names in everything. And that's why in the next ayah, 36, he says, and I don't think that the hour is coming, and even if I am returned to my sustainer, he says, to my Rabb, I will surely find something even better than this. Clearly he's repeating, he's talking about Rabb, but he does not know his Rabb. His Rabb is wealth. So he does not deny God as Rabb, but he's not confirming it in his heart. There is no conviction. It's clear from his word. He's saying, I don't think the hour is coming. This will never perish. Everything will stay here as it is. It means this is how it seems to us. And let's say we are returned, even if if it happens and I'm returned to my sustainer, I will surely find something even better than this, he says. He's so convinced of his rank or whatever, his status or whatever, that he can't imagine any other situation. And if you ask, like, what's his prerogative? Nothing. His own deluded wishes that he never questions. He's definitely living in a bubble of delusion. So now the believer, the neighbor who is the humble neighbor who is not as wealthy, has been listening, and now he speaks. 37-38, the neighbor says, his companion said to him while disputing with him, do you disbelieve in him who created you from dust, then from a drop of fluid, then shaped you into a man? But as for myself, I know that he is God, my Rabb, my sustainer, and I do not associate anyone with my sustainer. You see how the one who is listening, of course, it's in the Quran, so it's picking up exactly the weak points on the other side. Do you disbelieve? He's pointing. So here what we are taught is going back to, you're talking about Rabb, but you don't know your Rabb. Do you disbelieve in him who created you from dust, then a drop of fluid, then shaped you into a man? If we believe in this God, then this God is my Rabb, then I can't give rububiyah to wealth. I cannot give wealth any powers, because it's like water. Without water, we'll die, therefore water gives me life. This is totally false reasoning, totally false logic. It's like, if there is no bulb, there will be no light in the room, therefore the bulb is making the light. Bulb has nothing to do with light. It's just a mamar, how do you say, a channel, a means,
Pathway.
A pathway. It's part of a system, a small part of a totally interconnected system. It's a small part of it. You can take any part of that system. Someone else will use the same logic and say, it's the switch that's making the light, because you have to put it to, if you don't put the switch on, there will be no light. So that is not logic. Logically, you can demonstrate using, P and Q propositions. You can show that it is illogical. So it doesn't make sense. That is the logic of ghafla, and it leads to shirk. And exactly in 38, the neighbor says, but as for myself, I know that he is God, my Rabb. You are talking about your Rabb, but you don't believe in this Rabb, because this Rabb is not the one who is, you are not aware that he is the one who is sustaining you right now. He's been sustaining you since you came into being. I believe in, he's my God, he's God, my sustainer, and I do not, لا أشرك بربي أحدا لكنه هو الله ربي ولا أشرك بربي أحدا. I do not commit shirk. I do not associate anyone with my Rabb, neither wealth nor water nor anything. So God is my sustainer means whoever sustains me is my sole and only object of worship. And only he is my God. Only he is God. And I can seek help from him only. And all the benefits I get are from him only, through water, through wealth, through anything. Those things are ayat. When I seek his countenance, I will see that they are actually telling me, reflecting and speaking as though water, with its lifelessness, with its having no life, no shape, no power, nothing, it is speaking and glorifying God and saying He is Al-Hayyul Qayyum. He is the sustainer. He is the bestower of life, the giver of life, the only source of life. And so when I know Him through His creation, I cannot go back and make water or wealth or anything into. When I know Him through His creation, I know Him as my Rabb, and I cannot go back and perceive them as idols and make them into idols or seek anything from them. And instead, when I know them as for what they are, I join their tasbihat, their glorification. I praise God and I'm grateful to Him alone for everything that He creates and that I benefit from. And so I realize I can rely on nothing except God, and relying on anything other than our Rabb, meaning committing shirk, is madness when you see it from this perspective. It is total madness, more than delusion. It is like a delusion that goes to a level that is a little bit too much. And our values and status or whatever, we realize that it cannot come from something that is given to us, whether outward or inward. For someone could have, for instance, beauty or something. Beauty is, I'm thinking of like health. People don't say, oh, he's healthy, therefore he's superior, but maybe beautiful. Beauty is also given and it will leave. It is also impermanent, and anything can happen to that person, an accident or something, the face can be burned, something can happen. It's not only when they grow old, it is fragile because it is not inherent to them. And so they cannot be the source of any values. Our value, our status comes from our connection to our Rabb and nothing else. And that's why God has decreed that in Surah Al-Hujurat 49 and 13, the famous Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The whole ayah is actually, O people, behold, we have created you all out of a male and female, because we know that in like half of the globe at least, still lots of people think that a male is superior to a female. Some people even bring religious arguments to back up this nonsense. Both are created. How can one be greater than the other? Before God, everyone is equal. And so it starts with, O people, behold, we have created you all out of a male and a female, and have made you into nations and tribes, so that you may know one another. Truly, the noblest of you in the sight of God is the one who is the most deeply conscious of Him. Behold, God is all-knowing, all-aware. And also it tells us nations and tribes, because people have this illness, the ego takes on over, and it becomes, this nation is better than that nation. Why? Because I'm from it. What if you were born on the other side? Then that one would be. This is like, we talked about shaitan, and this is a trick, a trap of shaitan, when he says, I am better than Adam. Why? He purposely ignores what makes Adam superior, which is the ruh that has been breathed into him, and that ruh, with that breathing, he has been taught the beautiful names of God. He ignores that, and he says he's created from clay, and that looks to the physical appearance, the physical material. And he says, that's clay, and I am created from fire. I am better. Who gets to decide that fire is better than clay? You can't, because they're both created. Unless God says fire is better than clay, we cannot say anything. And because there is no reason for that, we can easily understand if it were the other way around, if Shaitan had been created out of clay, he would have said clay is better than fire. Fire is much more fragile or something. Once we decide something, it becomes easy to make up arguments to justify anything. The whole thing is that he's saying, you created me. If you are created, then only he decides. God, the creator, decides. And the creator decided that the noblest of you is not that he is male or female or from this nation or that nation or this color or that color. He created, it's his will. It does not make you one better than the other. Even if you want to be like the other one. For instance, you think this person is beautiful and you want to be like that. That's different than superiority. Does not mean superiority. And here it says, the noblest of you in the sight of God is the one who is deeply conscious of him. That's it. The decree has been decreed. And next we're told the right attitude. Ma sha'Allah la quwwata illa billah. So in 39, 40, 41, we're told, and he continued, this is the believing, the wise, humble companion. If you had said when entering your garden, whatever God wills, ma sha'Allah, there is no power save in God, la quwwata illa billah, if you had said this, and then he says, you consider me inferior to in wealth and offspring, yet it may well be that my sustainer will give me what is better than your garden, just as he may send a calamity out of heavens so that your garden becomes a heap of barren dust, or that its water sinks deep into the ground so that you are unable to find it again. So the wise and humble believer is reminding his neighbor of the reality of his limitedness, of his being created, of his being abd, of his being the recipient of rububiyah, of his being totally dependent on rububiyah. And therefore, everything is done unto him, and he cannot claim anything to boast over anyone else. If you like what you have, the only thing that we can do is be more grateful then. Be more humble, because it's like someone is hungry and you are full. If you can share, you share it. If it's not something you can share, then at least be humble about it and be grateful for it. And try to serve in a way that will benefit others if this is a gift that you appreciate so much. So this way, he is teaching him that nothing is under our control, or we are being taught that nothing is under control. So how can anyone claim superiority over anyone else? And indeed, the conceited neighbor, we are told, loses all his wealth, he's bankrupt. Ayah 42, we're told, and his wealth was destroyed. Actually, what uhita, the word used is, it is encompassed, enwrapped in destruction. It means it is a total destruction. Nothing is left. And there he was, wringing his hands over all that he had spent on that which now lay waste with its trellises caved in. And he could only say, oh, with that I had not associated anyone with my sustainer. Ya laytani lam ushrik bi rabbi ahada. So this guy is not a disbeliever. He knows his Rabb. It's just that he was conceited and forgot about it and said, I am the one doing work, therefore I am superior to the ones who didn't get the same results. He forgot that however much work we do, first, doing the work is a gift. Having the health, the acumen, the ideas, everything is a gift. And I could do all that and not get. Something happens and everything is destroyed, as it is destroyed now. Not only they are a gift, but the outcome is totally from him as well. And so he realizes that he was actually committing shirk. That's why he says, يَا لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أُشْرِكْ بِرَبِّي أَحَدًا. I wish I had not committed shirk, I had not associated anyone with my Rabb. I wish I had not attributed power and benefit to things other than God himself. Not only he had attributed power and benefits to his wealth, but also to himself. He somehow he ascribed to himself some value and superiority that he imagined.
This
Yes.
idealization of the self is clear in his conversation with his neighbor, because when he especially mentions life after death, and I still get the best of everything, why would he be so sure, as you asked earlier? Because he thinks it's about him. If I have this, there's something in me.
Yeah, it reminds me of Calvinism.
It reminds you of
Calvinism. If you are wealthy, it's a sign that God has, like you are a chosen person.
But it's even maybe it's even more than that, because he isn't saying this is a sign of God loving me.
No, he is not.
It's more like maybe it's like that to be. I don't know.
But in order to be able to say that, you still have to attribute something to yourself. Here he is clearly and simply saying it's from me.
Yeah, there's something in me that attracts goodness because there's something in me.
It means I am.
Coming from God.
People say I am. How do you say? Successful. I am good at doing work. I'm good at my work. We say it in many ways.
There's power in me. That's why I'm so secure. I think it's something in me that.
Even if I die on the other side, I will get it again. I'm so successful.
Almost saying like Allah Alam, but almost as if he's saying, God may be giving it to me if there's a God, or if there's no God, nature. It doesn't matter. It's not that I am getting from somewhere else.
That's how it feels. What we need to understand is, we may say, I never say this. It's not what we say in our mind. It's how we feel that matters. All this conversation is articulating a way of feeling, a way of experiencing the world. And we can find it when we listen carefully to ourselves. And we would be surprised. That's why people who don't listen to themselves, they get really, how do you say, very judgmental about others out there and accuse them and because like, no, this is wrong. Just a second. Maybe you have either the same or some of it. That's why compassion and empathy comes when we realize that we are not so different. And even if I don't have it now, even if I grew, how do you say, I'm not in that stage anymore, I can relate because I went there, and anytime I can fall there again. So it's something familiar to me.
And the way that his neighbor responds to him is he gives him reasons to come back. He says, did you forget that you were just a fluid and you were made from a fluid? So he's trying to, he's not just saying you're a heretic and go to hell. No, he's not saying that at all. He's saying what you have done is kufr, even though the man doesn't explicitly deny God, as you said, but it amounts to it, that there's something in me and I will always have this because, it's from me. And even if there's life after death.
It's from me and my wealth.
Yeah,
because if
so
it's from me, then it's also from my wealth.
Yeah, it's shirk and it's kufr.
By
projection. You are denying that this was given to you. So he diagnoses it and then also offers the evidence to kind of heal him. Like, look, how do you deny the one who made you? You for nothing. Remember, so he's tapping into something in his fitra by reminding him ayat from the universe.
And even giving us the formula, actually.
Yeah, what is it?
It's also, right after that, he says also, he gives him the formula. Like, when you enter your garden, you should have said, MashaAllah, la quwwata illa billah. MashaAllah, whatever God wills, it means remember again and again when you see this, that this is God's will. And there is no power except in God. There is no power in me, there is no power in the garden itself. Or in the water. That's why he said the water could go.
Dr. Yamina, I just wanted to make a point that, the conversation that is happening between these two, I don't know if they were brothers, neighbors, friends, whatever. The guy who was bragging about his stuff, the other one who believed in the Day of Judgment and everything, he did not make any comment till when he said, the other guy said that, I don't believe in the Day of Judgment. Then he started replying to him and got, very, became very proactive about it. But when he was bragging about his wealth and his, superiority in terms of finances and all that, he never said a word. But as soon as he made a comment that, I don't believe that the Day of Judgment will be there, then he made a comment. So I think that...
Thank you. That's one way of looking at it. Another way is that the other one, the first one, the one who is boasting, is making a whole argument and therefore not believing in the hereafter is the outcome of his stand, of his attitude. And so keeping in mind that this is God speaking to us, God makes the first one present his whole argument so that we know, because in the very beginning we can easily find ourselves in what he's saying, but at the end we may feel like, oh, but I do not deny the hereafter. That's why I kept saying this is not what we say with words necessarily, but this is how we feel, how we live. And that, what the ayah is telling us, is that is the logical outcome of this attitude. Whether you realize it or not, you are living as though there is no akhirah, because you think it's from you think it's from the water, from the wealth, from the garden itself. And now we are given the formula how to remedy the remedy. How do I remedy to this situation? First, remember, how can you disbelieve in your Rabb? Your Rabb is the one who creates you in these stages, from dust to this, and then saying that my God is my Rabb. So God is not out there, up there, and then everything else is my Rabb. No. There is only one Rabb, the Rabb who is taking me from one stage to another, who is sustaining me here and now, and that is God, not something else. And then he says, La ushrik bihi ahada. I do not commit shirk. I do not ascribe any partners to him. The partners are myself in some ways, the garden, the earth. I have a very good garden. I have water. There is plenty of water. I am a very good farmer. I'm a very good this and that. I'm good at business. That's how I got all the money. That's how people usually think, even when they are not deniers. And so this is teaching us, MashaAllah, is saying this, when you see things are going well, you succeeded, you say, whatever God, this is God's will. I asked and he gave me. There is no power except in God. There's no power in me or in anything else. I asked, it is given to me, through me, whatever. And then he says, look, and still, because there is part of us, that nafs, that ego, that conceited part of us in the bubble that says, yes, but it is given to me, why not to someone else? It means I also have something to do with it. It says, well, it could be that everything could be taken from you. That's only when really I feel with my own inner self, I feel that's where the nafs shuts up, can't say anything. If you have all these powers or even a tiny control, how can you not stop its destruction? Then, subhanallah. And that's what he, when everything is destroyed, actually it's good for him, because we don't want to go to after death and realize it, right? So he's given this opportunity. So it looks like it's a bad thing. This is related to the third story, the story of the Al-Khidr, where something that looks bad may actually be good. So here the bankruptcy, the destruction of his wealth, may look like something bad. But it's not, because it's an opportunity for him to wake up. He needed a big shaking up, wake up. And it's better to wake up in this world than to wake up after death, which will be too late. So if something good is happening to him when everything is being destroyed and taken away from him, because he actually now wakes up to his delusion, and he actually realizes that he was committing shirk, and he says, Ya laytani lam ushrik bi rabbi ahada. I wish I had not associated anyone with my Rabb. And I mean, if it happens, or when it happens after death, we are told in the Quran, in Surah Al-Haqqa, يا ليتها كانت القاضية ما أغنى عني مالية هلك عني سلطانية. It's like when the person on the other side says, I wish that death had not been my end. My wealth has ما أغني عني مالية. My wealth has not helped me, has not availed me anything. And my sultan, my authority is gone, is taken away from me, is gone. Halaka is like perished. So this is people who realize it after they die. So here it's a gift for this person, because this person is not a denier, he just deluded and conceited, as we often fall into that trap of shirk and forgetting who we are and what we're doing in this world. So I just wanted to emphasize that this is something good is happening to him, and because this will be the next step, the third story is about that. So once wealthy and now is bankrupt companion, it's called here, Sahib, companion, is now totally helpless. He used to rely on his wealth, and now it's gone, and now he knows that wealth is not something I can rely on. I can only rely on my Rabb. And in 43 we're told, and he had no host to help him besides God, nor could he defend himself. He had no one or nothing to help him. لم يكن له فتنة ينصرونه من دون الله وما كان منتصرا. And that's like he's left now with all he has now is regrets, maybe distress. And if he is wise enough, hopefully he'll turn back to God. It seems like he remembered his Rabb and realize that our Rabb is our only source of help, our only source of support, our only source of prosperity. Ma sha Allah, la quwwata illa billah. And in 44, the last area of this story, the story part, of course, we are told, for thus it is, all protection belongs only to God, the truth. He gives the best rewards and the best outcome. It means wealth can be replaced with anything. Here it's about wealth, but we can take, instead of wealth, anything. We can replace it with anything in our life. Anything that we may perceive as a source of superiority, a source of value, something that we seek for any reason to get validation or whatever. And here we are told nothing other than God can do that for you. So when we are seeking things, we are seeking them as they cannot be the goals of our life. They can only be landmarks in this journey towards God, towards akhirah, towards realizing our ubudiyah, this journey that will go through death to the hereafter, inshallah.
If I can add, interesting that the man, when his garden, is completely destroyed, and he regrets making shirk, it says, استعيذ بالله يقلب كفيه على ما أنفق فيها. He regrets
what he has spent on it, because he's made investments. That's why I'm saying hopefully he really means ya laytani lam ushrik bi rabbi ahada. But isn't that how we are? I mean, we feel we lost something. We invested so much, right? And we don't want to do it in akhirah, because then it will be really can you imagine? All your life, all my life, I invested for nothing. Oh my God, astaghfirullah.
Because that's
very painful. It's painful.
Yeah, to realize that he thought this is me, and this is me investing, and I'm going to get my results for sure because I have invested. And then all of a sudden seeing that, as you were saying, it's nothing. It's just, it was a means through which God blessed you with wealth and this and that. It wasn't from there.
If it takes you closer to God, alhamdulillah. If it does, and it's not neutral. It either takes you closer to God or away from Him.
Because from one perspective, he doesn't have wealth anymore like the other guy, and the other guy wasn't miserable. There's no reason why he should be miserable. But the misery is not because he simply lost some wealth or a lot of wealth. It's about the recognition that what he put his trust in wasn't real. It was just fluff, nothing. And that disappointment is really something that hurts, and hopefully that takes us to repentance and takes us to...
That's why, inshallah, it's actually something good is happening to him. It's up to him to take it as an opportunity, or sometimes people can just get drowned into the distress and the regret and whatever. But this idea yes, please.
Yeah, there's a part that always I keep thinking about when I get to here, which is the part when the humble man says, فعسى ربي أن يؤتيني خيرا من جنتك ويرسل علي حسبانا من السماء فتصبح صعيدا زلقا. I always so he's asking that, he's first reminding him saying, when you get into your Jannah, why wouldn't you say, MashaAllah, realize this is from God? And then, although you see me with less money and children, and then he like, I know, then I never understand this prayer. May Allah give me better than what you had.
He's not saying may. He said fa'asa. It may be. It's possible.
Yeah, but then he says, and send on yours like punishment from the sky, so that it's no more like fruitful. I never understood that part. Like, I always felt that part was out of the character of the guy. I mean, I don't know how do you perceive it? This part for me never settled well. So anyway,
there are two things I can see right now, which is he's saying it could he wants to tell him what you are boasting about can't be true. You are imagining things, you are ascribing something imaginary to whatever you are his idols. And he's saying everything is from my sustainer. In order to set that, whatever he said up to now, he's saying, look, it could be that I who have nothing now, tomorrow I will have more than you. It also could be that whatever you have now, you can all lose it. This is what he's saying. Now we feel that, why is he saying this? Like it's as if he's wishing him something bad. First, he's not wishing because he's saying asa, it could be, it may be. But not only that, but this ayah is calling on to us to, for me, it is the last drop that, there are still doubts. You say, okay, he's my Rabb. Okay, he gives me anything. But come on, I'm also doing something. Okay, it's from God, but he didn't give it to you. He gave it to me. It means also I'm making an effort, right? That's how it seems. But this logic brings it to no. Whatever you are doing is your prayer, is your dua. It becomes your good deed if you do it in the name of God and you recognize it as an opportunity to pray, to get a blessing. Or it could be a bad deed if you ascribe it to yourself and claim superiority over others. It becomes a means of shirk. So it's either a means of ihsan, of ibadah, or a means of shirk. And the fact that it is teaching us this, so it is taking us away from the possibility of shirk. Actually, lots of the time it's not a possibility. It is we live in that shirky delusion quite often. So it's bringing us out of that bubble. What this ayah is doing is, you can't say destroying a bubble. What do you do to a bubble?
Yeah, pinch the bubble.
Anyway,
yeah.
It is destroying the bubble. So this ayah is really, and you can see that when actually he went to his garden and it is destroyed, it looked like something bad. And he's not going to be happy. He's going to feel the distress and the regrets and everything. Mm-hmm. But that's good because it is now an opportunity for him to move out of that shirky attitude. It is a way, a path, a door open before him to find his true Rabb. So it is a good opportunity, something good, even though it looks like not good, as in the third story where Musa alayhi salam is with Al-Khidr and he sees things that he thinks are bad, and at the very end he learns that things are not always as they seem.
Yeah, you know, this like the garden is an easy garden for us, like the way, like, you know, like it's an easy garden for me, for example, to say, oh no, we had no point in doing that. But with the same measure of the garden, it's everything that we think, oh, I was the cause, for example, that that this good happened to you. I was the one who advised you to do this. I was the one who recommended
Exactly.
this job.
And the logic is
I was
always,
the one,
and
yeah.
what is the logic behind this? The reasoning is, if I were not there, it would not happen, which is not true. How would we?
Yes.
How would I know? Maybe something else would have happened. It is like if there was no water, the plant will die. Therefore, plant is giving life. If there was no bulb, there will be no light. Does it mean that the bulb is making the light? Not at all. Unrelated. The bulb doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, and actually, a lot of us believe, like workaholics, people who cannot let other people help. A lot of times we believe no one can do it the way I do it. Like, I need to do this because no one knows how to do it except me, or no one would do it correctly except me. Or I don't know if that is the same as this. Like, if when we fall into this, which is very easy to fall into, if that's the same.
It's the same from one aspect, in the sense that we're attributing the result to ourselves. We're doing something, but the result is not from us. There is, I think it's Surah Al-Ankabut. We are told, you worship only idols instead of God, and you give إنما تعبدون من دون الله أوثانا وتخلقون إفكا, and you create lies. By doing so, you worship idols instead of God, and by doing so, you create lies. إن الذين تعبدون من دون الله لا يملكون لكم رزقا. Those who you worship instead of God, definitely they have no power to provide you with sustenance. رزقا فابتغوا عند الله الرزق. Therefore, seek your rizq, your sustenance, from God. وَاعْبُدُوهُ وَاشْكُرُوا لَهُ إِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. And worship Him only, and be grateful to Him only, and unto Him, and to Him you will be returned. So you see, the attributing the result to ourselves is the problem. That's what we make. We make ourselves or something into an idol.
Yeah, and I think this is prevalent in all of us. Like in me, in like, you know, and I see this. Like, yeah, for me, like my mental effort is to try to see the garden on myself. Every time I attribute that the outcome, whatever that outcome would be, would only happen if I'm there, is being that man, is being that man in this surah, is having shirk.
Now you come to your ayah, which is, what shall we, to me, my nafs is totally can't say anything. It's totally convinced. All the doubts, before there is always doubt. You say, yes, God is giving me things, but I'm also doing something. Yes, you are doing, but what we are doing is not creating. It is a kind of dua. It is a kind of asking. So how do we be sure of that, so there is no doubt? You ask yourself, could I be doing the same thing and there is no outcome? Totally possible. Right? Because it needs only one thing. Everything is okay, and the bubble is burned, and that's it. You don't get the light. So all things that are under my control, I do it totally right, and something happens, a little thing that is beyond my control, and it just doesn't work, and there's no outcome. Is it possible? It is possible. We can imagine all kinds of scenarios. And that reminds us that, yes, it is true. What I am doing is not creating. What I'm doing is like putting the bulb. I am like the bulb in that chain of events. Yes, I'm doing something, but I'm not creating the outcome. The outcome is only from him. If I think that the bulb is participating in the creation of light, that's shirk. We do it for water, we do it for ourselves, we do it for wealth, we do it for all kinds of things in our life. And shirk is the worst thing that we can do to ourselves, to the world, and especially to ourselves in this life and in Akhirah. And it is the only thing that God does not forgive, because it's not about forgiving. It is like you put yourself into something, he can't take you out of it. You have to yourself get out of it, ask for help. When we ask for help, we are not in a state of shirk.
Dr. Yamina, I have a question regarding this. This guy sounds like, in this surah, the guy who's very rich and all that. I forgot his name.
Harun.
Harun. So he sounds like Harun. And Harun, also bragged about his,
Harun said, "It's I got it because of some knowledge from me."
Right.
Yeah.
So the point is this: his cry was.
Yeah.
I mean, he did not say anything about Day of Judgment and all that. All he did was bragged about his, and I think he was punished more severely than this guy, right?
Because he claimed to be beyond anything. Yeah, it was a more severe case. And of course, in all this, let's remember that everything is impermanent. So whatever we are attributing any value to, if it is impermanent, if we keep that in mind, if we train ourselves to read the signs, reading the signs and being aware of the impermanence are the two sides of the same coin. And so when we perceive things as signs and we read them as signs and we read their messages and we are aware of the flow of impermanence and transience, then we become aware of the source of permanence, and we are less likely to fall into shirk, into attributing values and benefit to things themselves or to ourselves, because in order to read the signs, we have to also be in touch with our own ubudiyah, with our being aware that we are totally or dependent. That totally is going to be a process, inshallah. The more we proceed in this path, the more we will, inshallah, realize that we are dependent actually, we are totally dependent on God's sustaining. He is our Rabb. That's what it means to be Abd. And that's what it means that He is my Rabb. 24/7, I am totally dependent on His Rububiyyah. And the more I am aware of this reality, the less likely I will be to claim things for myself or for other things, because I will see things in my mirror as a projection of my own self-perception, and I will see them for what they are, messengers from God, signs from God, ayat, reflecting the beautiful names of God, reflecting His countenance, and therefore I cannot attribute something to them when I am reading and hearing their tasbihat and participating with their tasbihat. Inshallah. I want to end with a few ayat from Surah Al-Kahf. The story ends at 44, and I'll start from 45, 46, 47, 48. We are told, and set forth to them the parable of the life of this world. It is like the water which we send down from the sky and which is absorbed by the plants of the earth, but in time they turn into dry stubble which the winds blow. Wealth and children are an adornment of this world's life, but good deeds, the fruit thereof endures forever, are of far greater merit in your sustainer*s sight, in your Rabb's sight, and a far better source of hope. وَخَيْرٌ أَمَلًا. Hence, bear in mind the day on which we shall cause the mountains to disappear. What you think is strong and stable, the mountains to disappear, and we shall behold the earth void and bare. On that day, we will gather them all together, the day of resurrection, leaving out none of them. And they will be lined before your Rabb, before your sustainer, and he will say, now indeed you have come unto us as we created you in the first instance. In the first instance, it means with nothing. Not only nothing material, but no strength, nothing. We can't speak, we can't do anything. Although you were wont to assert that we would never appoint for you a meeting. And then I go to 52, it says, hence bear in mind the day on which he will say, God will say, call unto those things whom you ascribed power beside me. يوم يقول نادوا شركاء الذين زعمتم. Those things that you used to attribute power besides me, God speaking, whereupon they will invoke them, but those things will not respond to them, for we shall have placed between them an unbridgeable gulf. This is the gulf of the delusion and the lies of shirk, the gulf that separates the mushrik from what they claimed in this worldly life. They claim that things are idols, that things provide benefit, but it's not true. They claimed, for instance, that water gives life, but it's not true. Water has no life. It cannot be the source of any life. The sun has no life. It cannot be the source of any life. And unless we bridge the gulf here, there, people will find themselves, they will call their idols, and they won't be able to reach them because they are on the other side. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
جزاكم الله خير Dr. Yamina.
It's interesting how the stories looks totally different, but actually you see that the theme is one theme. The same theme from different aspects.
Yeah, we are confusing the adornment as a source of well-being and value. It's an adornment. The surah started with talking about how this world is made beautiful and also transient.
And it is a test. You remember? It was a bala.
Yeah, indeed. This is a taste of this ocean of Surah Kahf. Inshallah, we can go back to previous verses and read it over again for us.
Remember, it's the surah that we read on Fridays. That's why we decided to share together, because it's a surah that is recited so often.
Yeah, subhanallah. Like first, when I would read the surah, you would read these stories of like, you wouldn't see how related they are to you. Like they're not about other people, they're about you. So when you realize they're about you, then you realize why you're reading them every Friday.
And why we need to read them so often. Alhamdulillah, it's rahmah. It is a rahmah for us.
And also like how the tone changes, as you asked, Sister Alia. I used to read the conversation as the poorer friend, as if he's upset. God can bring down,
like he's bitter.
He can give me better. That's the tone that I was reading it with. But now, more recently, when you look at it, I was assuming that he's angry, and but there isn't necessarily there. And the guy actually said very strong things, like, I don't think it will ever perish. And so he's saying something can come from sky and burn it up, or the water can just disappear.
He's actually showing him the way.
Yeah. So,
it's very wise what he's saying.
And then, interestingly, I noticed for the first time that the story doesn't say what happens to the poor neighbor. Like, he doesn't get rich, or if he, it doesn't say, and the man got rich, the other man. Because
that's not the point. He's grateful anyway.
Yeah.
He's grateful anyway.
Yeah, it's not about him being offended or making the case. He could have been given more or not. The point is, the man was wrong to think that he has a refuge other than God, or a giver other than God, and that was his illusion, and that needed to be corrected. And
it's interesting because I always read it the same way you read it, Isra. I always read it feeling that guy wished him bad luck, hasad, like as if it was hasad, like, may this be taken away from you, or may this be taken away from
you. There you were so arrogant with me.
Yeah.
I'm like, you shouldn't have been that arrogant, but aren't you doing a bit too much,
But you know what? SubhanAllah, also the way that I read it would be also is reflecting how, if someone was so arrogant, how, like, it's reflecting. Okay, so there's two ways. When someone is so arrogant, you might wish him bad luck to break his arrogance, or you might wish him that Allah will show him the way. Like, even if the outcome is the same, you would be a wrongdoer, or you would be the right doer. So when you're saying the same words but wishing that these will be guidance, you will have thawab for it. But when you're saying it wishing him doom, then you are equally bad doing. So again, this is also purification for my niyyah when this happens.
Alhamdulillah.
But could he be just giving a warning,
Yeah, so that's what we are realizing. Maybe there's no anger there. We were just reading into it.
Because he said such a horrible,
but
unacceptable thing. Like it's one of the pillars of, it's counted as shirk, right?
This is not only a conversation. This is a parable we are told from the very beginning. A parable is only a means to teach us something. God is teaching us, teaching me, whoever is reading. So what is God teaching me in that ayah? It's not someone speaking to his neighbor or whatever. In that ayah, it's not only, it is out of rahmah. It is something very strong. It's saying, look, if you still have doubt, can it be taken away from you? Yes. So how can you still claim that you have some control or some you're involved in the outcome?
Extremely mad. It's obvious he's extremely mad because this is the other guy spoke something unacceptable.
That's what we're saying. I don't think I never.
Who's mad? Yeah.
Who is mad? It's like when I am mad, I see it as he is being mad, or when I am without realizing, empathizing more with the first guy, I
Yes.
think that, why is this guy getting so mad? But like when you see that the first guy is really deluded and you are sad, you say, how can I help this guy to go out of this delusion? So you can see that it is compassionate. It is, I see it as very compassionate, and the whole destruction seems like, some people may read it as a punishment, but can you imagine if I am in that kind of situation and everything is destroyed, and if it takes everything to be destroyed to wake me up, I prefer that I wake up even if everything is destroyed, than waking up in Akhirah with like that. So
these days, if somebody had conversation like this, the first guy the disbeliever would say, "Oh, you are just jealous of me." You would expect that.
But this is God giving a parable. This is not.
Yeah, I know.
We are gossiping among ourselves.
Yeah. So the point was this, that he made a very major. It was a big crime to do shirk. So the other guy didn't say, "Oh, you're jealous of me," and and that's why you're saying like this. But this is the parable, like you said.
Yeah.
Allah
In 32,
teaching us a different aspect.
Exactly. In 32, it says, وَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا, and set forth to them the parable of two men. رَجُلَيْنِ مَثَلًا رَجُلَيْنِ. So, and set forth to them the parable. It doesn't say it's a true story, this and that. It says it's a parable. A parable is a means to explain something that can be complicated, that we can't get. It's like a telescope. Imam Nursi said it's kind of telescope. It makes something that is far for us to see, because we could be more closer to the position of the conceited guy. So this is making this reality, bringing it closer to us. And through this discussion, because when we are not implicated directly in the beginning, it's easier to listen to these two people, and they say, where do I stand here? And slowly, not maybe the first reading, we start realizing that, oh, I am also doing this. And the second one is definitely wise and compassionate, because it's the voice of wisdom, the voice of Rahmah, the voice of the divine. God is giving us the guidance. The second man represents divine guidance.
And the other guy who made this blunder, he accepted in the end. He wasn't,
Yeah, he is saying that I wish I had not committed shirk. So that's good.
So he had repented, yes.
Alhamdulillah. So it was good. It was the destruction was worth it. He was so much into it that he needed the destruction of everything to wake up. What we learn, you don't like the total destruction, therefore wake up without it.
Yaqada, right? Yaqada.
Yes, wake up. Just wake up without it, inshallah.
It's in this verse, the word yaqada, which is used, meaning to be wide awake, opposite of heedlessness, ghafla. It's only in Surah Al-Kahf, this one word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, was it in the story before?
No, it's on I think 18th verse, yaqada, used in Quran only once, which is the opposite of ghafla.
You think that they are awake, but they are not.
Yaqada.
Yeah, this just makes me, I know we're almost out of time, but just if I can add this, this discussion that we had just now made me think how this parable is so different than the ones I'm used to, or I tend to recall from the Quran, because, you hear people quoted as, there is no life after death. But this guy is saying there is none, but if there is, I'm still in good shape. Like, it's just an interesting. And then he doesn't say there are other powers explicitly, but then his wise friend says this is shirk, and wake up, how can you deny the one who made you, and so on. So, and that's also interesting because there are passages in which some people are saying there are other powers explicitly, min dunillah, or they deny completely, but here he doesn't seem to be explicitly denying. So it is really true.
It's about us. It's about us, really about us.
There's this verse that says, we have given all kinds of parables in this Quran. وَلَقَدْ ضَرَبْنَا فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ, I think. So it means there are all kinds of different parables given. Sometimes we explicitly deny, inshallah not, and sometimes we implicitly deny, inshallah not. But this is a way of really bringing out what is in us, and the idea is not to make us hopeless or curse us. It's to kind of wake us up. And in this particular situation, this man wakes up in this life. He is still alive. So
Alhamdulillah.
I like the idea of telescope, that this is to bring something closer, that there's a reality,
something that seems so far because we are so much in ghafla.
Yeah, it is really making it easier for us, because when you first read it, it's so ridiculous. How could he think this is not gonna go? Like, I think this will never end. Like, are you crazy? And then, it is a voice we have inside. It's just implicit. It says, I will never die. It says, I will never lose. So it really makes it explicit, more visible, some of the inner voices we may have, and the ghafla that we may slide into. SubhanAllah, a lot to reflect on, inshallah. Is there anybody else who wants to say something? I know I spoke a lot.
I think next time we should start by spending time and coming back and saying, what did everyone reflect on? How did they identify with these stories?
Okay, so if there is no other comments at this time, inshallah, feel free to share next time, as Sister Alia said. And inshallah, we'll continue next week. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you.
Meeting us again.
And let's keep each other in prayers in these blessed days, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Ameen. Thank you.
جزاكم الله كل خير.